LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the March 11th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I picked out the weekend's 16 best, most newsworthy clips for which would be a really informative, educational, fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. The political comedy sources tonight will be both last night's Saturday Night Live and Friday night's HBO Real Time with Bill Maher. I have brief clips from both those sources, both talking, making jokes about North Korea and the big surprise meeting that Trump announced on Friday that he's going to have with Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea. That's one of the main topics, along with the usual Trump chaos thrown in. There'll be a little bit of Stormy Daniels news. There'll be some backlash from Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania last night, where he attacked the press. He attacked a lot of Democrats. I'll have Elizabeth Warren responding to the Pocahontas charge from Donald Trump. And then I'll have Chuck Todd sort of responding to definitely responding to being called sleepy-eyed, sleeping son of a bitch Chuck Todd or something. Well, I'll actually show you that clip as well. And after I start with the political comedy clips, then the news summaries, and then the newsmaker clips, including Elizabeth Warren, as I said, Steve Mnuchin, and a long back and forth with Chuck Todd about where the definite subtext is the nasty name that, or the disrespectful name anyway, that Donald Trump called Chuck Todd last night. And that'll all be, and CIA Director Mike Pompeo's in there. There's a good mix of clips, so it's definitely worth staying tuned. And like I said, I'm going to start with Saturday Night Live. This is Weekend Update, making several jokes about the meeting between Donald Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, starting with starting with Colin Jost going to Michael Che, and I will discuss it with you after we watch that clip together over here.
In a stunning turn of events, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has agreed to meet in May with Donald Trump or whoever is president in May. Trump would be the first sitting U.S. president to meet with the leader of North Korea, and it's also going to be the first time where both translators start every sentence with, okay, so what I think he said was... I just love that there's a potential nuclear war hanging in the balance, and we're putting our lives in the hands of the only two guys connected on Dennis Rodman's LinkedIn page.
Experts warn that the talks between Trump and Kim Jong-un could be risky because, well, duh. Best case scenario, they'll realize they're both crazy and become best friends like that movie Step Brothers. But more than likely, Donald Trump is going to realize that he's just Twitter crazy and Kim Jong-un is crazy. And there's a big old difference. One guy trolls Oprah online and the other guy murdered his uncle with a cannon. This could end up being the greatest episode of Scared Straight ever. What do you think Trump's going to say at dinner when they tell him he's eating disrespectful limo driver?
Disrespectful limo driver did not get quite the laugh that Michael Che was expecting, I guess, there. But I do like the Michael Che joke that it was the result of the difference between Twitter crazy and crazy. And I don't know. I don't know if this meeting's actually going to take place, and I'll show you the news summaries. I'll discuss that at greater length, especially given some of the vacillations of the Trump administration as to whether there are concrete preconditions that, or whether it's just lack of certain actions, and I'll get into that later. But I actually think Bill Maher did a slightly better job than the co-head writers Michael Che and Colin Jost on Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update. This is also about twice as long. It's the same premise, the North Korea meeting, and why Bill Maher is happy about that. And in fact, he, in his show, not just in the monologue, but also later in the show, he talks about how he thinks that Donald Trump is actually doing something good and he wants to give him credit for it, which I think may be going a little far. But there's also one common theme between these jokes and one of Colin Jost's jokes, the ending here, which I won't give away. So let's watch it together, and I will talk to you about it after we watch together over here.
I know why I'm happy, because Kim Jong-un of North Korea yesterday told South Korea that he is willing to meet with the leader of the United States. But Putin wasn't available, so Trump's going. Trump is going. Fat man and little boy are going to have a date. It looks like Trump is going to travel to North Korea in May. And, of course, there are reasons, 100 reasons why this is dangerous. We're talking about, after all, a family that has reneged on every deal they ever signed. And Kim Jong-un can't be trusted either. But you know what? I was watching all the cable news last night, and so all these liberals who are reflexively hating on this, Obama, remember him? Proposed the exact same thing in 2008, and they loved it. And B, you know, fuck you. You don't live on the West Coast, where a nuke can get here faster than an Uber from North Korea. I mean, what is this bullshit? No president has ever done this. Yeah, and they all failed. So I'm going to file this one under so crazy it just might work. This could be the one thing that Trump, honestly, is uniquely qualified to pull off, because Kim and him, Rocket Man and Rain Man, are mirror images. In a weird way, they respect and like each other. You know, Trump said he's a smart cookie. They have the same interests: flattery, celebrity, tyranny. They both have daddy issues and overeating issues and problematic family members and inexplicable hair. They both love missile parades, and they both lie on their golf scores, and one day you see staff members working for them, and the next day they disappear. Who is the one American that Kim likes? Dennis Rodman. Well, Trump is the closest thing we're going to get to President Dennis Rodman.
President Dennis Rodman. That was the common thread between the Bill Maher jokes and the Weekend Update jokes. They both, you heard the Colin Jost LinkedIn Dennis Rodman joke. So, of course, it's kind of an obvious place to go when you're doing North Korea jokes. And I also like the whole string of jokes there that Bill Maher did as to the how there are all these commonalities between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, and I don't know, maybe they will get along, and maybe it's going to be some master stroke, and Donald Trump will be the president who finally brought peace to the Korean Peninsula. But for reasons that I will show you a little later, the goals that they've set seem to be way overly ambitious, at least if you take the word of the Trump administration's director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, in a clip I'll show in a little while. But I do want to, this is one more sort of political comedy clip before I get to the 5 news summaries from the big 5 corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, and Fox News. Did I get them all right? I don't have the list in front of me. Oh, and by the way, I'm supposed to tell you that you can see my clip list here by going to the link down in the video description, and just like you can see the last 2 videos I showed you, there are YouTube videos from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, and they have a channel, and Saturday Night Live has a channel, and both those videos I showed are on those channels at links I put down in the video description. You can also find my clip list down there if you want to look at my 16 clips here. And clip number 3 is, I'm going to show it a couple times because the last clip is Chuck Todd responding to being called a sleepy-eyed, sleeping son of a bitch by Donald Trump last night at a rally in Pennsylvania. And that clip was not on any of the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big 5 corporate outlets that I usually take my clips from, but they did play it on NBC's cable news station, MSNBC, AM Joy. This is Joy Reid introducing it and then showing Chuck Todd's Twitter response in the 45-second clip from this morning over here.
Todd, our colleague, here is the way Donald Trump, President of the United States, talked about the host of Meet the Press.
You ever see the story where it's 1999, I'm on Meet the Press, a show now headed by Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
Wow. Okay. Well, at least it's a non-NFL player he's calling a son of a bitch. Then Chuck Todd had some good humor about it. He said, "Don't miss Meet the Press tomorrow." He tweeted, "I know folks may be tired in the morning due to springing forward, and set those clocks and DVRs now before your eyes get too sleepy." This is undignified.
So you can see that's the way they. Oh, look, it's Sandy coming in. I will have a bonus Sandy clip at the end, by the way. Although I have it already processed. Can you hear Sandy there? That's Sandy shaking her collar as she gets ready to lie down and be my live studio audience. I appreciate my live chat audience. I don't know if this will be the week that YouTube finally saves my live chat for replay. I don't think it is, but I guess we'll find out at the end of the video when it becomes a recorded video. And like I said before, I'm going to show you all 5 news outlets' news summaries. So the CBS one is is a news summary about North Korea that's much more detailed than the others and much more serious. The rest of these are more about the Trump chaos. They throw in North Korea. They throw in, there's some Stormy Daniels in here. This is Chuck Todd, who does not mention how he was called out by Donald Trump last night that you saw in that last clip, but does really show Donald Trump in a pretty unfavorable light day by day, and then the North Korea thing and the Mueller probe and tariffs and guns, and it's about 4 minutes long, and I will talk about it with you after we watch together over here.
To be frank, we're running out of ways to say we've never seen a week like this one before. Well, let's review. Monday, former Trump campaign aide Sam Nunberg appears on cable TV, all over cable TV, and insists he will not comply with a subpoena to appear before special counsel Robert Mueller's grand jury. By Friday, he was appearing before Robert Mueller's special grand jury. Tuesday, Mr. Trump's decision to slap tariffs on steel and aluminum leads his chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, to announce he's stepping down. Wednesday, we learned that President Trump's lawyer recently obtained a restraining order to prevent porn actress Stormy Daniels from talking about her alleged affair with the president. Wednesday night, the Washington Post reports that Mueller has learned that a secret meeting in the Seychelles Islands before the president took the oath was designed to create a back channel to the Russians. Thursday, President Trump signs proclamations on the steel and aluminum tariffs as America's allies promise to retaliate. Friday, we're all talking about the I alone can fix it president who announced a meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Then last night in Pennsylvania, the president bashing opponents and praising himself while purportedly campaigning for Republican congressional candidate Rick Saccone against the Democrat Conor Lamb. Bottom line, the head-snapping week of screaming headlines and seat-of-the-pants decisions is indeed the presidency Donald Trump promised, and the presidency he seems most comfortable with.
You know how easy, remember I used to tell how easy it is to be presidential? But you'd all be out of here right now. You'd be so bored.
President Trump unleashed, campaigning in southwestern Pennsylvania. The official reason, a stop for Republican Rick Saccone, who's in a tough special election. But the president had another campaign in mind, his own.
Our new slogan, when we start running in, can you believe it, 2 years from now, is going to be, "Keep America Great!" Exclamation point.
And picking familiar targets, as well as a new one.
Can you imagine covering Bernie or Pocahontas? Maxine Waters, a very low IQ individual. Nancy Pelosi, you can't have that. And Conor Lamb the sham.
The president stunned U.S. allies and his own advisors Thursday night by announcing he will meet North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un face-to-face without preconditions, tweeting, "Meeting being planned." That contradicted what his own Secretary of State had said just hours earlier.
We're a long ways from negotiations. I think we just need to be very clear-eyed and realistic about it.
White House officials scrambled to explain what exactly the president was announcing. adding new preconditions to the meeting.
They've promised to denuclearize. We'd have to see concrete and verifiable actions take place.
Then walking those preconditions right back.
They're not sending missiles up, and I believe that. I believe that. I really do.
And there was confusion this week on tariffs.
Your steel is coming back.
With nearly half of his original White House staff gone or heading for the exits, and his presidency mired in a federal criminal investigation, Mr. Trump has decided he is the only one who can achieve a White House reset. And he's going it alone, acting as his own negotiator and strategist.
There'll be people that change. They always change.
Mr. Trump campaigned on being the only one able to strike tough deals.
Nobody knows the system better than me, which is why I alone can fix it.
Now he is tired of being reined in and ignoring advice from those around him. As if all this weren't enough, the president is dealing with a growing sex scandal involving porn actress Stormy Daniels. The White House is trying to deny the relationship.
He's denied all of these allegations,
while simultaneously admitting, perhaps unintentionally, that they are trying to silence her.
I had conversations with the president about this, and as I outlined earlier, that this case had already been won in arbitration.
Case already won in arbitration. Apparently, Donald Trump is mad at Sarah Huckabee Sanders for saying that because she admitted that the president was somehow involved with Stormy Daniels, which seems pretty obvious. And you notice how Chuck Todd on Meet the Press there, well, pretty much started and ended that news summary with Stormy Daniels, which, if you know about primacy and recency, that's a way to really stick it in the viewers' minds. I don't know if that's a way to also stick it to Donald Trump after being disrespected by the president at that rally last night. They showed the rally, they showed North Korea, they talked about the Mueller probe, they talked about the tariffs. It was a really good roundup, I guess, you could say, of the different news events, and I like the day by day at the beginning. And it didn't put Donald Trump in a very good light, which you may say, oh, well, it's not NBC's fault that they didn't put Donald Trump in a good light. It's just the events in the news. But compare that to what ABC did. And ABC usually is pretty close to NBC in a lot of ways in the way they, the tone and the facts that they put together. But here you'll see Jonathan Karl guest hosting on ABC's This Week, and he talks about how Donald Trump is winning. And, you know, there's a clip from the very end of This Week with George Stephanopoulos. You can watch the entire episode, as usual, at a link down in the video description. I didn't take the clip from the end, but Jonathan Karl talks about an interaction he had with Donald Trump where Trump was like challenging him to cover him fairly, and now maybe that explains why he does this like fair and balanced report, I guess, where he starts off talking about Trump winning, but then he does talk about Trump being a gambler and how there are possible downsides. He could lose big by the end of this almost 3-minute news summary, which definitely has a different tone from the NBC news summary we just watched. And I will talk about it with you after we watch Jonathan Karl introduce it over here.
Good morning. I hope you had a good week. And what a week it was here in Washington. What a week for President Donald Trump. I've covered the Trump presidency since day one, and this week, like so many before, featured a big resignation, controversy, infighting, and chaos. But there was also something else. Donald Trump, a president who likes to gamble, who plays to win, well, this week, he's been winning.
I think we're doing a good job for you. I hope so. We're working hard.
President Trump riding high, imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum 2 days after his chief economic advisor resigned.
He may be a globalist, but I still like him.
Defying the world and at the same time keeping his word.
I'm delivering on a promise I made during the campaign.
Some of the biggest critics of the move, leaders of his own party.
You'll have a lot of unintended consequences. You'll have a lot of collateral damage.
But despite those doomsday predictions, the markets bounced back by the end of the week. And an even bolder move, President Trump again took matters into his own hands, this time on North Korea, agreeing to meet with Kim Jong-un. He alone made the decision.
Who else could do it? I mean, honestly, when you think. They're not going to send missiles up. Think of it.
And he took it upon himself to inform the media that a major announcement was coming. It's a big risk.
It risks the president's credibility, the credibility of the United States, and worse still, I think it increases the risk of conflict.
But if the meeting happens, it just might be the kind of historic breakthrough this president craves. And then there's Stormy Daniels, the adult film actress who says she was paid $130,000 just before the election to stay quiet about her relationship with Donald Trump.
Look, the president has addressed these directly and made very well clear that none of these allegations are true.
For any other president, a scandal like this could be devastating. But for Trump, it seems just another chance to prove nothing is embarrassing or shocking enough to bring him down. So as far as the West Wing is concerned, the president is right on track.
What words would you use to describe the president's mood right now?
The president's in a great mood. The president's been in a great mood because we've had not just a successful couple of days, we've had a successful year, and we're very focused on making sure we have 7 more.
Of course, any gambler knows big bets can lead to big losses. The tariffs he championed could trigger a trade war that tanks the economy. If the North Korea gambit fails, we could be pushed to the brink of war. And those scandals may eventually catch up with him. Let's bring in Shah, Principal Deputy Press Secretary in the Trump White House.
And I will have 2 clips, I think, from Shah a little bit later in the program. But I think, as I promised before I showed that clip, Jonathan Karl did put a fairly positive spin on Donald Trump, although there was mention of Stormy Daniels and the possibility of big losses, and so I guess there's that. By the way, I just saw I got a Super Chat contribution, $10 from GWolf333, asking, after Trump is out of office, do you think the Republicans will help pass legislation to stop a person without any clue of how our government works becoming president in the future? No, I don't think that there's ever going to be like any kind of literacy test to become president, unfortunately. But I think that question might have been a little bit tongue-in-cheek. You can let me know at GWolf if that's true or not. But I don't think that I disagree with, well, I mean, yeah, every time I watch Donald Trump talk about our government, he does seem to have huge gaps in his knowledge, and that's one of the real dangers of this North Korea thing, which I think is one of what you'll see in the CBS Face the Nation news summary I'm going to show in a few minutes, but I have 2 other ones to show first, CNN and Fox News. First, on CNN State of the Union, Jim Acosta was in as the guest host, and the State of the Union was deja vu because of the campaign-style rally, I guess, that Trump held in Pennsylvania, and then also talks about the North Korea, oops, I dropped my clip list, sorry about that, also talks about, North Korea and Pocahontas at the end. I have that edited in, and there's a little bit of North Korea, but also I think takes a strong shot at Donald Trump for saying the reason he's at this Pennsylvania rally is to avoid another crushing loss. So I think a reference to Roy Moore in Alabama. You can let me know what you think after we watch that clip together over here.
Hello, I'm Jim Acosta in for Jake Tapper in Washington, where the State of our Union is experiencing some major deja vu. President Trump is back in full campaign mode, going off on his rivals and going off script in a 75-minute rally in Pennsylvania. He was there to support Republican candidate on the ballot this Tuesday, Rick Saccone, but the president really seemed to be campaigning for himself, desperate to avoid another crushing loss in a special election. He even rolled out his new 2020 campaign slogan, "Keep America Great!" and promising to remain true to himself.
Remember I used to tell how easy it is to be presidential? But you'd all be out of here right now. You'd be so bored.
He also laid out his record on trade and the economy. The speech comes just days after the president's stunning decision to accept an invitation to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which Mr. Trump held up as an achievement that no other president has been able to accomplish.
They want to denuclearize. Nobody heard that. Hey, who knows? If it happens, if it doesn't happen, I may leave fast, or we may sit down and make the greatest deal for the world and for all of these countries, including, frankly, North Korea.
Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jim Acosta. President Trump is already setting his sights on 2020. No surprise, calling out potential Democratic challengers during his rally Saturday night.
Can you imagine covering Bernie or Pocahontas? Pocahontas. Can you imagine having to cover Elizabeth Warren for 4 years?
The president also emphasized his new diplomatic approach to North Korea, touting support from regional allies. It's a strategy Democratic lawmakers like Senator Elizabeth Warren have been urging for months, calling on the president to try negotiating instead of threatening and taunting the North Korean leader. So are the president's fiercest critics now on board with the new strategy? And joining us now is Democrat.
Oh, and I will have a clip of Elizabeth Warren from CNN, one from Fox, and one from NBC. Those are clips 11, 12, and 13. But I still have clips 7 and 8 here coming up, which are the last two news summaries. I think in that one, was there a Stormy Daniels reference? I don't think so. It was much briefer. But there was definitely a negative tone about the president. It seems, other than watching, the ABC one seemed like spun to the positive more than the facts deserved, in my opinion. And the CNN and NBC reports, I think, have more of the tone that I think fits the facts, but you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. And now I'm going to show Fox News Sunday, where I think they tried to put the most positive spin on a lot of this stuff. There's no mention of Stormy Daniels in this introduction here from John Roberts, who's guest hosting, and you'll see that they actually, you know, it's almost like the ABC one. They start off saying it's bold moves by the president. I don't know. I guess in some ways the North Korea thing is a bold move, but, well, I'll watch the Fox News Sunday clip with you here, and you can tell me what you think about it while we watch it together, or I'll tell you what I think after we watch it together over here.
Again from Fox News in Washington, where President Trump made bold moves this week on trade and diplomacy with global implications. First, enacting tariffs on imported steel and aluminum over the objections of many in his own party, but leaving the door open for exemptions for some of America's closest allies. Then, accepting an invitation to sit down with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. It would be the first face-to-face encounter between the two countries' leaders. And while the talks have the potential to mark a breakthrough in tensions with Pyongyang, there are plenty of risks and preconditions before that can happen.
We are making no concessions, and we are not going to move forward until we see concrete and verified actions taking place by North Korea.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, on a week-long trip to Africa, appeared caught off guard.
We're a long ways from negotiations. I think we just need to be very clear-eyed and realistic about it. President Trump has said for some time that he was open to talks and he would willingly meet with Kim Jong-un when conditions were right and the time was right. And I think in the president's judgment, that time has arrived now.
Just a few short months ago, insults were flying between the two leaders, with Kim calling the president a mentally deranged dotard, and the president firing back.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. He is a sick puppy.
No time and place has been set for what would certainly be a historic meeting. And of course, North Korea has a long and rich track record of making promises and then breaking them. We'll discuss it all this hour with Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and the CIA Director Mike Pompeo.
And I have clips from both those guests. I think, yeah, both of them from Fox. I think I have a Mike Pompeo. Yeah, I do have a Mike Pompeo clip from Fox where I think that John Roberts asks an important question, although there are a couple ways that he could have followed up better, but especially in terms of previous statements that don't match what CIA Director Mike Pompeo says about Russian interference in our election. But that'll be a little bit later. That's clip number 11, and I'm about to give you clip number 9. Oh, sorry, clip number 8. This is the CBS Face the Nation news summary. Margaret Brennan actually throws it over to Holly Williams in South Korea, which CBS does the most in-depth coverage of the Korean situation, putting it in the context of what North Korea has done with previous presidents, talking to this expert who basically explains why it is that the North Koreans are probably much more focused and much better prepared for the negotiation than President Donald Trump is, unfortunately, as I will discuss with you after we watch that 2.5-minute clip together over here.
Since Thursday's announcement about a meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, there's been plenty of reaction here and from our allies. We turn now to CBS News foreign correspondent Holly Williams in Seoul, South Korea, some 35 miles from the North Korean border. Holly, what are you hearing over there?
Good morning, Margaret. What's bizarre is that the whole world is talking about this meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, but we've had no direct confirmation of it from North Korea. It's been completely silent, at least in public. This has all come through South Korea. It began with a rare meeting between senior South Korean officials and Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang this past week. He gave them a message for President Trump, inviting him to meet. The South Koreans delivered it to the president personally.
Kim pledged that North Korea will refrain from any further nuclear or missile tests.
It's an extraordinary turn of events after a spate of North Korean missile tests last year, another nuclear test in September, and months of insults. Do-yeon Kim is an expert on North Korea and its nuclear program and says the North is eager to talk because economic sanctions are hurting the regime.
It's not going to be easy because the North Koreans are very good negotiators and they know how to play the game.
What is the game that they play?
Get everything they want and give nothing in return.
North Korea has also reneged on previous deals. Other sitting US presidents have decided against meeting with North Korean leaders and rewarding them with some legitimacy without getting concessions from them first. Is it possible that they're better negotiators than President Trump, who prides himself on being able to make a deal?
The North Koreans have had 25 years of experience dealing with Americans, but in the States, the administrations change. That's what the North sees as America's strategic weakness. Changes in personnel, changes in characters.
The key player in this region is China, perhaps the only country with the leverage to force North Korea to denuclearize. It's been tougher on enforcing sanctions recently, but for years China has been North Korea's biggest trading partner and a lifeline to the regime. Margaret.
Holly, thanks. And we'll be back with our next...
Yeah, no, that was a really good in-depth report from CBS's Face the Nation, better than any of the other four networks. As I said before I showed it, also showed why Donald Trump is in great danger being outmatched by the North Korean negotiators, assuming the meeting ever even takes place, when there are a lot of reasons it might not. And maybe as it becomes more clear that it's going to be a negotiation that Trump can't win, I don't know. And it may have to do with some of the preconditions, which I will get to in a minute, but what seems most unlikely is this really surprising answer that Margaret Brennan got from CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Remember, CIA Director Mike Pompeo was appointed by Donald Trump. He used to be a partisan Republican. Now he's director of the CIA. And he's done some partisan things regarding the Russia investigation, which I'll get to when I get to that clip 11 on Fox News Sunday I was talking about before. But in this clip, Margaret Brennan gets him to say something very surprising about the goal of the negotiations with North Korea. She brings up the way Mike Pompeo and a lot of Republicans were really big critics of President Obama's deal with Iran. Well, it was Obama and 5 other countries, but the deal with Iran to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And Republicans have complained that it left Iran too close to getting a nuclear weapon. And you'll see from this question and answer that Mike Pompeo wants to get a better deal with North Korea than the one with Iran. But listen to where Iran is in terms of its nuclear weapon and missile technology. I mean, we all pretty much know, I think, but it will become clear by the end of this clip with very surprising 1 minute 45-second clip from Face the Nation over here.
When you were in Congress, you were harshly critical of the nuclear deal with Iran that the Obama administration negotiated, and there are obviously flaws that even they recognize there. But the Iranians did give up the vast majority of their nuclear fuel, and their production facilities aren't functioning. Have you set a higher benchmark for these talks since North Korea is farther along with its nuclear program?
Yes, Margaret, I think that's the case. Most importantly, the conditions are very different. The previous administration was negotiating from a position of weakness. This administration will be negotiating from a position of enormous strength with sanctions that are unrivaled against the North Korean regime. That conversation will proceed very differently. My critique of the Obama administration's JCPOA commitment was that they left the Iranians with a breakout capacity. They had a short time frame that these restrictions would remain in place, and North Korea's human capital and enrichment capacity continues to remain in place. Those are all things that present risk to the world, and President Trump is determined to prevent that from happening in North Korea.
So you look at that deal and say that's a starting point, or that's at least what we can reach, if not go beyond that with North Korea.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, North Korea.
Stream error there. Sorry for the live viewers. Hopefully the health of your stream is still good. But I don't know. I had a little problem with my software there. But like I said, that was a very surprising response, or good questioning from Margaret Brennan, and a very surprising answer there from Mike Pompeo that he wants to get North Korea back behind the place where Iran is, where Iran doesn't even have a nuclear bomb yet. North Korea has nuclear bombs and is a few months away from being able to put it on a missile that can blow up basically any city in the United States. So Mike Pompeo, the director of the CIA, is claiming that they are going to they are going to get North Korea back behind where Iran is. That seems very, very unlikely. But you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. Are you all still being able? I was hoping if the live chat is being saved, I didn't want to have to upload a recorded show, and it's really my fault. Are you all being able to see and hear me? Hopefully without any sort of big delay or. Oh, are we back? Well, that's good. Because I wanted to. Oh, you can see my laptop there. That's what I was doing. I was like moving my laptop around, and now you can. Have you been able to see my laptop the whole time? I don't know. Anyway, you can still see the top of my laptop. That's one of the problems I've had today. Is I'm putting my laptop on top of a block of ice because it keeps overheating. It delayed the capture of all my clips today. I think this is finally the week I'm going to have to replace my 6-year-old MacBook Pro. So, whatever. That's, I guess the newest MacBook Pro is like $4,000. So, but it's been 6 years. I guess this is the week. So. Hopefully I'll have everything worked out by next week, where this MacBook Pro here. Oh, see, that's how I lost the stream before, as I lifted up my MacBook and I turned over the block. It's like the blue ice thing, it's plastic filled with some sort of liquid that you then stick in the freezer and it ices up, and I've got a huge block of ice underneath my computer. And anyway, sorry about that, but I think we analyzed that Mike Pompeo clip, and oh, now I dropped my. It's been a long, hard day of I had my laptop in the refrigerator some of the time, trying to cool it down so that I could record the longer clips before it would crash, and it's been kind of a nightmare. So the next clip is Shah, the the White House deputy press secretary. I don't know if he's going to get a, now that Hope Hicks is gone, does that mean Sarah Huckabee Sanders moves up and then Shah moves up, or I don't know how things are going over there at the White House. But in this next clip, Shah is also talking about North Korea, and there's sort of there was some definite ambiguity in what happened from the Trump administration, where first they said there were no preconditions, they were just going to meet. That was Trump's announcement. And then Sarah Huckabee Sanders said there have to be concrete steps, but then the only concrete steps are things that North Korea is supposed to not do, which is test nuclear weapons, test missiles, or object to joint military exercises with South Korea. And here you can see Jonathan Karl asking Shah about that in this 1-minute clip over here.
And help me understand, when this announcement was made, the White House first just said the president has accepted the offer. That's correct. And then on Friday, Sarah Sanders, press secretary, said that there are concrete actions that North Korea has agreed to take before. Are there preconditions? Well, or is this definitely happening?
No, they have to meet the promises that they relayed to the South Koreans, which is, again, ceasing missile testing, ceasing nuclear testing.
That's pausing something, but are there concrete actions that they've agreed to take?
Again, this meeting, this potential meeting has been agreed to. There are no additional conditions being stipulated, but again, they cannot engage in missile testing, they cannot engage in nuclear testing, and they can't publicly object to the U.S.-South Korea planned military exercises.
Is there any chance this blows up, doesn't happen?
There's the possibility. If it does, it's the North Koreans' fault. They have not lived up to the promises that they made.
But the only thing that could stop this is if they resume their testing or they start.
Yeah, look, if they object to the obligations that they made, the promises that they made to the South Koreans, then obviously we would potentially not.
Okay, so help me understand. The president.
So that was Shah there trying to pretend that there has been no walk back, no change, but not doing things isn't really a concrete step. And worse, that's what Elizabeth Warren is. Well, wait, sorry. Before I get to the Elizabeth Warren clip, I need to show you the Mike Pompeo clip that I. Why does this say? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, this is the Elizabeth Warren clip, even though it starts with a picture of Mike Pompeo. I guess this must be, Elizabeth Warren, John Roberts asks Elizabeth Warren, about how this Lindsey Graham quote that says, Trump's not going to get played by the North Koreans, or they're going to be sorry if they try to out-negotiate him. And Elizabeth Warren makes a very reasoned argument as to why the president to, dictator visit is premature, and the difference between what real concrete steps would be and this just refrain from missile launches or nuclear tests or objecting to the South Korean U.S. Joint military exercises. And I think that's this 92-second clip from Fox News Sunday over here.
Russia. President Vladimir Putin did an interview with NBC in the last few days in which he said he could not care less if Russians tried to.
No, that is not the right. You know what? I think it is actually clip 14. I think I somehow got this mislabeled, and so it's here. It is.
South Carolina, who has found himself on the opposite end of the table of President Trump many times in terms of opinion, issued a warning to Kim Jong-un, saying if you try to play President Trump, that's going to be the end of you and the end of your regime. Senator Graham doesn't seem to have any concerns that the president is going to get played here. Why do you?
Well, you know, one of the things we have to remember is that the Kim family, dictator after dictator for generations now, has been hoping for a face-to-face negotiation with an American president. This is the big prize for them, just being able to be in the same picture with him. And the reason for that is the Kims have seen this as an opportunity both to legitimize their dictatorship and to legitimize their nuclear weapons program. So my view on this is, before you let them have that big prize, before you announce that you're committed by a time certain to go to that prize, what we need to do is make sure that the North Korean regime has made real steps toward freezing their nuclear program and steps toward winding down their nuclear program. And not just promises, but actual verifiable steps that we in the United States can see. They shouldn't be able to get the prize of meeting with the president unless they've taken those kind of steps.
Which raises the question, though, how would you, Senator, suggest that that be verified? I mean, how do you verify something in North Korea?
Well, that's the point. The North Koreans have to be willing to open the door. And if they're not willing to verify, then let's go back to the history we've had with North Korea. Promise after promise after promise after promise that they have broken. If we let them have a prize just based on a bunch of promises, knowing that they've broken every promise in the past, then shame on this administration, shame on the United States. We have to say, you all have to be willing to open up so that we can verify. If they're not willing to do that, then they're not willing to take steps.
Let's move on to trade. The president, as you know.
So that's actually a really interesting position there from Elizabeth Warren. She's basically getting to the right of Donald Trump on North Korea, saying he's being too liberal, too conciliatory, too Neville Chamberlain or whatever, too appeasing to Kim Jong-un by meeting with him without getting concrete, verifiable changes, like denuclearization or, dismantling or, various types of letting people in to verify things that are happening to decrease his nuclear program. Not just, promises that without verification, you don't even really know what's going on in secret. And, you can tell that he's not blowing up nuclear bombs and not testing missiles, but there could still be lots of developments going on. As I have one guest who I didn't take a clip from one of the shows was saying, the United States doesn't do any nuclear testing, but we're always updating our nuclear weapons. So, and so I think Elizabeth Warren there took an interesting position to the right of Donald Trump. But I'm going to show two more Elizabeth Warren clips, and I don't know. I'm sorry about playing the wrong clip there, but I somehow mislabeled clip 11 and 14. Which are both from Fox News Sunday. So I had to, clip 14 is actually the Elizabeth Warren clip, even though it's labeled as the Mike Pompeo clip. So, and then 11 is the Mike Pompeo clip, which I'll play when I get to 14. But these next two clips are both Elizabeth Warren, first from CNN and then from NBC, both showing ways that I think she probably is running for president. In the second clip I'm going to show you from NBC's Meet the Press, Chuck Todd actually specifically asked her about that and asked her about the whole Pocahontas thing. But that's the second clip. In this first clip, she talks about tariffs. Tariffs, and I was originally going to say, well, she got to the right of Donald Trump on North Korea, and then she's going to get to the left of him on tariffs. And, well, I mean, she says tariffs might be okay, and it's the way Donald Trump is like being a populist Republican and, not going on Republican free trade orthodoxy. Is that Donald Trump going to the right or going to the, in some ways it's getting a little mixed up on trade, which is the right and which is the left. But I think that Elizabeth Warren probably has a good position to run on in her answer on tariffs, talking to Jim Acosta on CNN State of the Union this morning here.
I definitely want to move on to. I want to move on to something that we want to talk about on the economic front, and that is the president really reaching out to blue-collar workers with these tariffs that were announced last week. Are you worried that Democrats are losing of these blue-collar workers that were so critical to the president's victory in 2016? And can your party bring them back? Joe Biden seems to be trying awfully hard to reach out to those kinds of voters. What do you think about that?
I don't think this is a political question. What I think is, and I've been a longtime critic of America's trade policy. I think we've been negotiating trade deals for years that benefit giant multinational corporations and that don't help workers, don't help small businesses, and often don't even help consumers. What I'd like to see us do is rethink all of our trade policy. And I have to say, when President Trump says he's putting tariffs on the table, I think tariffs are one part of reworking our trade policy overall. We need a trade policy that's comprehensive, one that makes a distinction between the trading partners that follow the rules and the trading partners that break the rules, like China, but a comprehensive trade strategy that isn't all about multinational corporations' profits, but it's really about American workers and American small businesses. That's the kind of trade policy we need.
And I know we're pressed for time, but I have to ask you.
American workers, not multinational corporations. That's the kind of trade policy. I definitely agree with Elizabeth Warren's phrasing on that and her focus there. Tariffs, I talked about that last week. I generally tend to believe in free trade, but fair trade, which also has, labor standards that Elizabeth Warren was talking about. I'd also say environmental standards, and, there are other different ways that there can be non-tariff trade barriers, I think they're called. But I think that position, like I said, is a position to run for president on, and I think her North Korea position in the previous clip sounded like a presidential running position, and this is the final Elizabeth Warren clip. This is NBC's Meet the Press. It's it's 3 minutes 43 seconds, and it has two parts to it. The first part is Chuck Todd asking Elizabeth Warren if she's running for re-election for 6 years as a senator in Massachusetts. Will she commit to serving out her 6 years and not running in 2020? Well, she does not. She says she's not running, and she's focused. But then the things she's focused on and the things she talks about all make it sound like she is really running. And then you'll see Chuck Todd doesn't say the word Pocahontas, but does ask her about this Massachusetts paper that's asking if she'll take a DNA test to prove whether or not she has Native American heritage. And she has. I think, was she on 3 or 4? She was either on 3 or 4 of the Sunday morning news analysis shows, and she gave this answer. I think it was on 3 of them. I think I heard this answer 3 times. This is the answer that she gave to Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press after the answer about whether she's running for president. And even though she doesn't say yes, looks to me like a big yes. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section after we watch together over here.
You win re-election this year, are you going to pledge to serve a full 6-year term?
So look, I am not running for president of the United States. I am running for the United States Senate 2018, Massachusetts, woohoo. But let me actually underline a point on this one, and that is we can't just be a party that says, oh, we're paying attention about what happens every 4 years. And I know there's a lot of anxiety, particularly on the Democratic side, about how we are going to deal with Donald Trump in 2020. But right now, this week, the United States Senate is talking about a bill that will roll back protections. We've got the Dreamers. We've got the tax bill that's gone through. We're still fighting to provide health care for everyone. We should be having a gun debate on the floor of the United States Senate. It's not only about the election in 2018, where I think we do need to be laser focused, But
So
it's
I take
about
it
the fights every single day.
I take it as a no.
Those fights,
You're not
that's where I'm focused.
I take it as a no. You're not pledging to serve your full 6-year term if you win re-election?
I already told you. I have no intention of running for the United
All right,
States.
but you know, I don't mean to pick on you about this, but you know how many
Yes, you
people have
do.
said that? You know how many people have said that over the years? 2 years before, and then, of course, have ended up running for president. You see why a lot of people aren't going to believe that answer.
Look, what I'm telling you is that I am in these fights every day for the people of Massachusetts and for the people across this country.
Yeah.
This government is working better and better and better for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. I am in these fights, and I am in this fight to retain my Senate seat in 2018. That's where I'm focused. That's where I'm going to stay focused. I'm not running for
So
president.
no pledge, though, on the 6 years.
I am not running for president.
Duly noted. Finally, I want to get you to respond to the Berkshire Eagle editorial. I know you've been asked about it before, but I'll go ahead and put it up for viewers. Were you to test positive, they want you to take a DNA test. Were you to test positive for Native American DNA, it would permanently resolve the issue while possibly shutting down President Trump. Should the test come up negative, it would be an opportunity for the senator to perform an act rarely seen among politicians, an admission of her error and a full-throated apology to Native American tribes and anyone else offended by her spurious claim. What do you make of that idea?
So let me tell you the story of my family. My mother and daddy were born and raised in Oklahoma. My daddy first saw my mother when they were both teenagers. He fell in love with this tall, quiet girl who played the piano, head over heels. But his family was bitterly opposed to their relationship because she was part Native American. They eventually eloped. They survived the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, a lot of knocks. They raised my 3 brothers, all of whom headed off to the military, and me. And they fought, they loved each other, and most of all, they hung together for 63 years. And that's the story that my brothers and I all learned from our mom and our dad, from our grandparents, from all of our aunts and uncles. It's a part of me, and nobody's going to take that part of me away.
Senator Warren went on to claim that she's never benefited from her Native American heritage. You can see my entire interview with Senator Warren at meetthepress.com. I encourage you to do so. It was quite interesting.
And I haven't had time to check out the full interview, but I included that part because I also put a link down in the video description to the website for Meet the Press and all the other sources of all the clips I'm showing you. And I thought that, well, I think Chuck Todd's questioning revealed pretty much that she is running for president and she's not going to take a DNA test. Although, I don't know, maybe if it depends on the polling and how big an issue it becomes if she does run for president, maybe she would take a DNA test. The thing is, I don't think those DNA tests are really all that accurate, but for people or for dogs, I've seen some studies or some exposés showing that both dog and people DNA tests, they don't really give you that much of an accurate reading. So why should her presidential campaign depend on that? Or I don't know, maybe she's already secretly taken the DNA test, or I don't know. You can let me know what you think in the comment section. And that was the last of the 3 Elizabeth Warren clips I wanted to show you. But now I have a few more clips on some other issues, not specifically, not North Korea specifically. This first one is Mike Pompeo. I promised you this earlier. And then I'll have also Rod Shah talking about whether about the Stormy Daniels thing, and then the final clip will be Steve Mnuchin talking to Chuck Todd about, well, not specifically about whether Chuck Todd is a sleepy-eyed son of a bitch, but that's definitely the subtext of the whole almost 6-minute clip that will be the final clip before the bonus Sandy and Dash. It's a Sandy and Dash clip I'll have at the end. But before I get to that bonus Sandy and Dash clip, I have these 3 Trump administration officials, Mike Pompeo, Rod Shah, and Steve Mnuchin, to finish up the show. First, Mike Pompeo being asked by John Roberts on Fox News Sunday about a recent interview Putin did. I think it might have been with Megyn Kelly, where he said that if there was hacking, they weren't related to Russia. And Mike Pompeo, Republican appointed director of the CIA, says it was the Russians, it was the Kremlin, and he doesn't even. He had to walk back this statement earlier about how, but the intelligence agency said there was no effect on the election, which actually that's not true. In this clip, he does give the correct answer, which is that the intelligence agencies have said we're not looking at the question as to whether the outcome of the election was affected. But I think John Roberts should have asked him specifically about his misstatements in the past. Doesn't ask him about it, but otherwise at least gets him to talk about Russia meddling in our election. There's one other thing John Roberts didn't ask about that I will talk about with you after we watch that clip together over here.
Russia. President Vladimir Putin did an interview with NBC in the last few days in which he said he could not care less if Russians tried to hack the U.S. election because the people who were doing the hacking were not connected to the Kremlin. No connection to the Kremlin? What does the CIA know about that?
That's false.
So tell me what you know.
The Russians attempted to interfere in the United States elections in 2016. They also did so before that. There's a long history of Russian efforts to influence the United States and conduct influence operations against the United States. And it was Russians who actually engaged in this, not somebody from outside of the country or disconnected from the Russia.
But when you say Russians, Russians with ties to the Kremlin, Russians with ties to Putin's regime?
Yes.
So do we know if their efforts actually affected the outcome of the election?
Yeah, the intelligence community has been clear that's not our role to discuss that, but there's not been a single indication that any vote was changed, that ballots were tampered with, or that there was any outcome determined by the intelligence community. The intelligence community has simply said that's not our role to make that determination.
Is it fair to say you don't really know for sure?
The intelligence community's role is very clear. We talk about the things that happened, what the Russians did, what the other actors, not just Russians, have done historically in the United States to try and impact and influence American leaders. That's our function. We'll stick to that.
Right. The president said over and over.
So there you have it. He did actually give the truthful answer that the intelligence agencies don't know. They haven't really looked into whether the Russian meddling that was directed by the Kremlin had any effect on the actual outcome of the election. John Roberts didn't ask him about his previous misstatements. Also didn't ask him about what they're doing to stop hacking in the next election, which seems a big omission. But I have to finish up I don't know if you can hear the fans going on my MacBook. Oh, by the way, I saw Jay Woods gave me a $25 contribution as a down payment on my new MacBook. Thank you for that. You can also help out by becoming a patron, a monthly patron on Patreon. I'll talk about that a little at the end after the bonus Dash and Sandy clip. But I want to get through these last two clips. First, this is Rod Shah answering a question about whether Donald Trump would fire Robert Mueller if he starts looking into the Stormy Daniels case, which I thought was kind of an interesting question. And then you'll see Rod Shah show that he could, he's been up there at the podium where, Sarah Huckabee Sanders usually is. And so he can give the talking point double speak, I'm not answering the question, but I'm sounding like I'm answering the question. I'm not answering the question, but I'm sounding like I'm answering the question. I'm not, how many times? So that's sort of the end of this 2-minute clip talking to Jonathan Karl about the Stormy Daniels case. And not really giving much of an answer over here.
Then back to a variation of the earlier question that the president would fire Robert Mueller. For instance, if Mueller were to begin to look into the Stormy Daniels payoff, would that be a red line? Would the president fire him?
Well, I'm not here to declare any red lines. There's no intention whatsoever to fire Robert Mueller as special counsel right now. We've been fully cooperative. We respect their process. We're hoping it'll come to a conclusion in the near future.
Okay, when I asked you about Stormy Daniels, speaking of Stormy Daniels, this is what you said to me in the White House briefing room. Is the president aware that his lawyer paid that kind of money to a porn star to buy her silence? Does he approve of that?
I haven't asked him about it, but that matter has been asked and answered.
No, not since he acknowledged this.
Yeah.
He acknowledged this last week. This is the first time we've had a chance to ask about it. So can you go back and we find out if the president approves of the fact?
Yeah, I haven't asked him about that.
Will you ask him about that?
I haven't asked him about it.
But will you ask him about it, Rod?
I'll get back to you.
Okay, you've got a chance to come back to me. Did the president approve the payment that his personal lawyer made to Stormy Daniels?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but Michael Cohen, the attorney in question, has addressed this. The White House has addressed Sarah, addressed it earlier this week, and I have nothing further to add.
Did the president reimburse Michael Cohen, his attorney, for making that payment?
Not to my knowledge, but again, Michael Cohen has addressed this matter extensively, and the underlying allegations.
Have you asked the president that question? Did you know?
I haven't asked the president about that question.
And does the president believe that Stormy Daniels has a right to speak on this issue, or is he demanding that she remain silent?
Again, this is a private legal matter for which the president's attorney has spoken about, and actually there's some orders in court regarding that matter. And again, I'd refer you to Michael Cohen about the specifics regarding that. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, we're almost out of time. I want to do a quick lightning round.
So kudos on Jonathan Karl for bringing up that question that he asked when Rod Shah actually was at the podium that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is usually at, and he promised he would get back to him, never did, and you saw eventually Rod Shah there admitted that he never even asked the president. He's just, not that I know of, but how was he supposed to know if he never asked the president? That's kind of bogus. But then I think Rod Shah also spent quite a bit of time there doing what I said before I showed the clip, which is like, I'm not answering the question, but I'm saying several things that make it sound like I'm answering the question. I'm not answering the question, but I'm saying several things that make it sound like I'm answering the question. And you can check with Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, to find out more about the answer I'm not giving you. So anyway, that is the second to last clip, or news clip, before, of course, I keep promising you the Sandy Dash clip at the end if my whole computer doesn't blow up before that. But the final clip I want to show you, I'm going to replay you one of the clips I showed near the beginning, or at least part of it, because this next clip is Chuck Todd talking to Steve Mnuchin, first about the way Donald Trump is attacking the press and lauding Kim Jong-un, the dictator in North Korea, and then you'll see by the end of this, Chuck Todd is saying, we teach our children to respect the presidency. What should people like that say to their children? And when he's really asking, what should I say to my children? And Steve Mnuchin just doesn't give him anything. And by the end, you can see that Chuck Todd is pretty upset. But what never comes up in this entire almost 6-minute clip is what Donald Trump said about Chuck Todd last night at that Pennsylvania rally, and that's what I'm going to play you just to refresh your memory before I show the Chuck Todd clip. I will play you this Reid clip from AM Joy this morning where she introduces, and then I'll go through what Donald Trump said about Chuck Todd as a reminder.
Chuck Todd, our colleague, here is the way Donald Trump, President of the United States, talked about the host of Meet the Press.
You ever see the story where it's 1999, I'm on Meet the Press, a show now headed by Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
Wow. Okay. Well, at least it's a non-NFL player. He's calling a son of a bitch.
Sleepy Eyes, sleeping son of a bitch, Chuck Todd. Sleepy Eyes, Chuck Todd, sleeping son of a bitch. I don't even see the sleepy eyes. I mean, there are other people. Sometimes I feel like I have sleep. Well, I usually do this after being up a long time. And I also have one thing, I tend to squint because you can't really see, but I have like 6 lights shining in my eyes here. These are like have diffusers, those not so much, but I have like 6 lights so that I have like a good picture. I have a lot of light shining in my face. That's why I often am like squinting when I'm doing the show. So maybe I'm more sleepy-eyed than Chuck Todd, but here's Chuck Todd talking to Steve Mnuchin and never using that term, although I've also edited a clip at the very end from, you'll see it's like the last 20 seconds of Meet the Press, where I think it was Andrea Mitchell who actually brings it up. But here's Steve Mnuchin never bringing it up and never really apologizing in an almost 6-minute clip, the last clip before the bonus Dash Sandy clip at the end. Over here.
I want to ask you about the president's rally last night. He made a few comments about various folks. Let me play one about somebody that you have to be in front of in Congress quite frequently. Take a listen.
Maxine Waters, a very low IQ individual. You ever see her? You ever see her? We will impeach him. We will impeach the president. But he hasn't done anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him. She's a low IQ individual. You can't help it. She really is.
I think you most recently appeared before her committee. She's the ranking member on House Financial Services. If somebody on your staff referred to her that way in public as a low IQ person, would that person still be on your staff?
Chuck, you know, I've been with the president and at campaigns. You know, he likes to put names on people. He did that through the entire presidential election, including all the Republicans that he beat. So these are campaign rally issues.
Is this, so it's acceptable? I don't, so you're saying that's acceptable behavior for the rest of the administration too? Or is this unique to him?
Again, Chuck, this is something that is at a campaign rally, and the president likes making funny names.
All right, let me ask you, I'm going to play another clip here about what the president said about the media versus Kim Jong-un. Take a listen.
A lot of bad people, a lot of fake media. Look at them. A lot of fake media. Fake media. South Korea came to my office after having gone to North Korea and seeing Kim Jong-un. And no, it's very positive. No.
So the image of an American president encouraging boos of the American press corps and discouraging boos of a dictator from North Korea. Your reaction, sir?
Look, as you know, first of all, this president has created lots of news, okay, and there have been lots of misreporting on the president. What you should focus on is we've had a great week of results. So this is a historic situation of the president meeting with North Korea with no preconditions on the United States side whatsoever, as well as steel tariffs. This was a big week for our trade and economic policies. We've been focused on, for the last year, creating solid economic growth. That's been a combination of tax reform, which I think, you know, a lot of people said would never get done, 30 years in the making, regulatory relief, and trade. So the president is focused on economic growth, and we're well aware and on our way to our target of 3% sustained GDP.
All right, I understand you wanted to get back on an economic message, but the president of the United States in the past has been a beacon of freedom of the press. Instead, last night, he was praising authoritarian figures in China and North Korea and encouraging boos of the American press. Does this mean this American president is no longer going to be preaching about the values of freedom of the press and democracy around the world?
Of course he believes in freedom of the press and democracy around the world, and he believes more importantly in protecting democracy around the world, and that's what we should be focused on. I wasn't at the campaign rally, as you know, but again, don't take these campaign rallies and focus them on that's what it is.
So okay? Should we stop covering the campaign rallies? Do you think it's a mistake then for us to cover them at all? That it doesn't matter what he says? If it doesn't matter what he says there, if we're to dismiss everything he says at a campaign rally, as I think you're trying to imply, then are you saying we shouldn't cover these things?
You're putting words in my mouth. I wasn't in any way saying you should dismiss that whatsoever, and you should obviously carry them because these are important moments for the president, and this is news. What I'm trying to say is I'm focused on the policies, and the policies have created results. We've had more results in the last year on both foreign policy and domestic matters. So what we should be focused on, and what I came to talk about, were the president's policies.
I wanted to talk about those with you. Obviously, he chose not to do that. Look, final question for you. Many people, including myself, raise their kids to respect the office of the presidency and the president of the United States. When he uses vulgarity to talk about individuals, What are they supposed to tell their kids?
Again, I'll be with my kids this morning, and I'll be focused on them on what the president is doing to protect the United States, its citizens, and more important,
so he's not
economy.
Immoral. Don't worry about his values. Don't worry about him as a role model.
I've never said that whatsoever, so I don't know why you're putting these words in what I'm trying to say. Okay, so again, I am very comfortable with what we're doing, okay? And again, I think you're trying to take this out of perspective and implying something I'm not saying.
Oh, fair enough. That what are you supposed to say when he's using these vulgarities to kids?
Again, I think you should be focused on what the policies are. He's using those vulgarities in the context of a campaign rally, and obviously there were a lot of funny moments on that rally.
Yeah, they were hilarious. Anyway, Secretary Mnuchin, I appreciate you coming on again. I know you had to wake up extra early. That I appreciate. Thank you very much, sir. This was a day we needed an extra hour and then some.
To avoid getting sleepy.
I think, well, there's that too. Anyway, thank you very much. That's all we have for today. Neanderthals, sleepy eyes and all. We'll be back next week. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
So that was the only actual reference to sleepy eyes in the show, was in that like brief clip at the end. But as I said, the two clips from the Steve Mnuchin interview I edited together, I think are pretty much all about that same thing, especially like that, you know, all the funny moments. Steve Mnuchin claims are all the funny moments, and Chuck Todd is like, yeah, hilarious. I think that pretty much sums up almost the whole thing, and I think it, well, I don't know, do you think that Chuck Todd was getting emotional, or he was doing his job, or he was getting emotional doing his job? You can let me know what you think in the comments section. That is the final news clip. It's almost 11:30 at night here, and it's been a pretty long day. Like I said, because of my stupid overheating MacBook, everything like took twice as long, and that's why I'm so late. Hopefully everything will be fixed by next week. I did, like I promised, I did take a quick clip of both my cat Dash and my dog Sandy earlier today when it was still light out, not that long ago. Oh, Sandy knows I'm talking about her. She's looking over. But this is a clip of first Dash being surprised by Sandy, and they have a little brief face-to-face contact in the final 7-second clip of the night over here. So there you have it, Dash and Sandy. The last clip at the end for the Sandy, and I guess maybe, are there Dash fans out there? I think I saw in the live comments at least one Dash fan. If you're really a fan, you can give me a thumbs up down in the comment section. I mean down below the video. You can give me a positive comment down in the comment section. I appreciate those super chat contributions. I also have a link down in the video description for direct PayPal contributions, paypal.me/LiberalViewer. And of course, I especially appreciate my monthly patrons on Patreon, who give me the ability to think that maybe I should go out and buy another MacBook and keep doing this. Like I said, I really want to cover the impeachment, and by the way, down in the video description, not only are there links to Patreon where you can become a patron, at the $5 a month level you get these #LiberalViewer weatherproof vinyl bumper stickers. At the $10 level I also throw in an ACLU Constitution with a Know Your Rights section at the end. I've been sending these all over the world and all over the United States. Actually, just the sticker I can send anywhere in the world pretty much for like $1.15 postage. So feel free to sign up for that if you're one of the 40% of my viewers from outside the United States. But anyway, that's the end of the show. Hopefully next week I'll have all these problems fixed. Of course, now I'll have a whole new set of problems when I have to I have like 5 other pieces of hardware that I'll have to like make sure work with the new system and whatever. It's like mo money, mo problems, or whatever. But I guess until I have a chance to make an edited, produced video, I was thinking of making one about sanctuary cities. Does anyone want to see me make a video about Donald Trump versus California and sanctuary cities? Because I know a lot about that. You can let me know in the comment section. But until I make a video like that, or until I'm back next week, hopefully earlier in the day, with my Sunday live clip roundup, like every Sunday for the last 255 Sundays. Until then, I will be seeing all of you around the internet.